What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Brotherly Banter podcast. My name is Christian. This is Sebastian. Today, we're going to be talking about basically our the currency situation, the dollar situation, and how it's going to be, how it's going to affect us possibly moving forward, and what we can do to kind of prepare for it. But so that's going to be a topic today. Sebastian, did you want to start off with the what you got there?
Yeah, so I think we're going to start off by talking about a video that was put out over 10 years ago by a gentleman named Mike Maloney. He did a series on YouTube. It's called Hidden Secrets of Money. And it was really, really good, man. And this got over, I'm looking at it right now, I think it had over a couple million, actually 5.8 million views in the last 10 years. And what's so unique about this video, I feel like everything that he talked about 10 years ago, because he wrote a book on it before he actually made the video, is actually all coming together now. So I think we're going to break down this video. We have a couple timestamps that we want to go over a couple things with the video. So I don't know if you want to jump right into it, but basically we're going to break down his theories of what's going to happen to eventually the US dollar.
Yeah, and basically it's gonna we're gonna just kind of highlight a few sections here. The gist of it is basically based on history, the where everyone people are expecting the U.S. dollar to basically be worth nothing. Just kind of what's happened to Venezuela, what's happening to Argentina, what's happening to a few other countries and happened in the past. Basically, everything goes to zero. So that's what what he talks about, and like he says, Sebastian says, this was filmed 10 years ago, still very relevant to what's happening today. Even more relevant probably now than it was 10 years ago, and something for everyone to keep an eye out for, and don't ignore this kind of stuff because it is going to affect all of us. I believe in our lifetime, maybe sooner than later. So we'll highlight a few sections. We'll talk about them, and then we'll go from there. But the first section that we have pulled out is basically where they talk about how all the currency in the past has gone to zero. So give me a sec here. I'll pull that up.
And while you're starting that, Chris, he talks about two things. You have money and you have currency. Money, what he breaks down is, gold, silver, something that's been around since the beginning of time. And that's what they used back in the day. And that's what still holds its value today. And then currency is what the government prints, just a piece of paper. So this is in reference to all currencies go to zero. So basically paper money.
Yeah. All right. So here I got pulled up. Let me share the screen. All right. Can you see that?
Yep. Yeah, this is episode 1, Hidden Secrets of Money.
Is there an example throughout history of a fiat currency, a piece of paper that's unbacked by anything, surviving?
Short answer, no. Long answer, no. And here's why. When Addison Wiggin took over at the Daily Record, when they got cranked up, Bill Barr asked him to catalog all of the fiat currencies throughout history and what happened to each of them. Addison dutifully went to work. Within a short period of time, he had gone through the alphabet. All the fiat currencies that started with the letter A were done. They all went to Z. He was halfway through the letter B, and all the fiat currencies that started with the letter B, and there were 600 of them in just the first letter and a half of the alphabet, and every single one of them went to zero. Every one. 600 fiat currencies that start with the letter A, and half of the ones that start with the letter B are 600 of these things. Not one ever came close. You think this one, the United States dollar, is going to be the first one after all that? I don't think so. No. No currency, fiat currency has ever survived.
All right. So yeah. So basically, that's a pretty crazy number. Just going the first 600 that they were, even started looking at, all went to zero. So, what do you think, Sebastian? Do you think this is going to be happening, soon, or how soon do you think this could happen?
Well, he has a lot of, I think it's like 10 episodes. So he goes into really big detail about it, everything that he thinks is going to happen. And most of the stuff that he already predicted is already happening. But he also says they can keep printing money as long as everyone, the world keeps it as the world reserve currency, right? So they can just keep, it's going to just devaluate the dollar. So that's when you have like bills that you go to other countries and you see bills that are like in the thousands. I think I sent you one. It was in Zimbabwe, a $10 billion bill that was worth, it's actually worth less than $5. So if they can drag it out as long as they want, but if they continue to print money, it's just a matter of time. Whenever the whole rest of the world loses faith in the US dollar, and that's when everything usually crumbles.
Yeah, and back in the day, so the dollars used to be backed by gold. The banks had had the gold to actually back that dollar up, and what happened is that basically they kind of got away from all that and they just started printing money. So there's nothing really actually backing our dollars up anymore, and they just keep printing and printing and printing, and the more they print, the less valuable our dollars are worth, or less value our dollars worth. And like right now, if they go ahead and start printing again, which they're probably going to doing little by little, or you see it every day. You go to the store, your dollar's not worth anything anymore. Like it's hard to buy food. There's no, I mean, even what is it? The dollar store, that the real dollar store where everything was a dollar.
Yeah,
It's
it's
not
$1.25 now.
yeah, $1.25. So
$1.25,
that's
yeah.
a cause of inflation. I mean, no more. I would have never thought that it was ever going to change, but because we've been buying stuff for $1 since we were little kids. Now, there's nothing for $1. You can't go get a dollar menu anymore at McDonald's. It doesn't exist. So
Yeah,
little by little,
he also talks about it once it I think he said once it went off the gold standard. I think the US dollar has already lost 90% of its purchasing power already. 90%. So that's when you see menus back in the day of McDonald's when they were like the cheeseburgers were like 10 cents or whatever, 25 cents for a cheeseburger and fries. That's because the money doesn't have the same purchasing power.
yeah.
And every year you lose purchasing power. That's why every year it's 3%, but it's been going out of control in the last year or so because they printed so much money in the last 2 years specifically.
Yeah, and going back to the gold thing. So and the banks, and like this is the reason why the banks are some of these banks are basically going out of business, because they're lending out money that they don't have. And if let's just say people are panicking trying to pull money out, they don't have it. They don't have it. So they basically have to it's like go bankrupt.
Well, he calls it a Ponzi scheme, the biggest
Yeah.
Ponzi scheme.
I mean, it is a Ponzi scheme, because like you're basically taking someone else's money to pay someone else. But like eventually when everyone wants to cash in, there's nothing there. There's really nothing there. So it's a huge problem. And this is why these banks are closing down. And,
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I know we listen to a lot of podcasts, but I think, the bigger banks are probably going to be safe, the Banks of America, stuff like that, because they're kind of almost like backed by the government. But the smaller banks are the ones that are going to be suffering. And the banks can't, if the interest rates keep going up, they can't give out loans, and it's just going to create it's a snowball effect.
Yeah. By the way, when you say backed by the government, a lot of these banks are bailed out by the government because they print money. That's what he goes into. That's why it's a big scam.
Yeah.
And they just print more money, so they bail them out. But
Yeah.
all that does is create larger, obviously, influx of dollars in the economy.
The banks are they're in bed with the government, and that's why they bail them out, because they work together. And this is why we're in this problems.
Dude, it's fascinating. And Chris, if you want to play real quick, 6:34, minute 6:34, I wanted to touch on this one too. This is a really good point that he made.
6:34.
Yep.
All right, give me a sec here.
Guys, if you have a chance, you definitely have to watch this series. All the episodes.
Currency, of course, is a currency that exists at the dictate or by fiat from a government. You say they have their printing presses, and the paper money rolls off the printing presses, and then they give it the fiat designation, which makes the currency official. It's just worthless paper. But when Ben Bernanke gives it the special sign, and they have the cult meeting at the Federal Open Market Committee, it suddenly becomes currency.
You look at what's really going on. It's a con game. And so there's confidence. Well, the Federal Reserve is very forthright about what they're doing. If you read their website, they'll tell you it's a confidence game. They tell you that there's no intrinsic value in their money. they'll tell you that they printed backed by absolutely nothing. They actually display all these facts. But if you tell somebody in the public that this stuff is created out of thin air, there's no backing whatsoever, it's absolutely worthless, it's about as valuable as monopoly money, they'll look at you like you're nuts.
Is there an example throughout history of a fiat currency, a piece of paper that's unbacked by anything, surviving?
All right, so that kind
Listen
of
to
goes,
that,
yeah, that goes back to like what we already watched. But
Yeah.
let me stop sharing. Yeah, so it's very, so I feel like a lot of people kind of ignore this subject because it can be very complicated if you don't understand, what's actually going on and how it works. Obviously, for the longest time, I didn't ever care to even like, look into this stuff. But as I got older, it's something that I'm more interested in because it does affect me as an adult now, and it's going to affect us moving forward, and the kids. So, this is not, I wouldn't say this is a, what do you call it? What's the word?
Scare tactic or something
Yeah,
to-
it's not a scare tactic, and it's not a conspiracity. This is actually something-
conspiracy. Oh, I
like
got you. Yeah.
it's actually happening. So like, this is not people being paranoid and freaking out, and like it's actually happening, and it's something that's actually going to get worse. So I was thinking, like, I was talking to my wife the last 2 days. I'm like, what do we do to prepare for something if it does, happen fast sooner than later? And right now, like, some guys, they talk about we can't really buy land because
Yeah, because you want to put your money in hard assets at this point, right? Because you want something.
well, you need something that you can move around with, right? Because let's just
Yeah.
say something like, they say, like, let's just say something happens major, like a war, and someone comes over and takes over the US for example. This is an extreme example, but you're not gonna be able to take your land with you, right? You can't pack up your land and say, I'm gonna move my land. You can't buy barrels of oil because it's going to cost you ridiculous amounts of money to like move oil around. So what can you take that's small enough you can move it around easily? And there's a few things. I mean, gold, going back to gold is like basically where money started, back in the day.
It's the real money. That's what the whole series is about, is gold
Yeah.
and silver is the real money.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously gold, obviously you need less of it for more value. With silver, you just need more of it. Both are good things to have. But, like they were saying, let's say you're traveling, right? And you got, I don't know, whatever, a couple $100,000 worth of gold on you, and you get stopped at the airport. Well, they're not going to let that through. So, so anything, you can't really travel unless you're like, driving or whatever it is, walking. But something else that some people are still like, hesitant to even look into. I know it's been very volatile, but like, this is where I see Bitcoin or something like that digital type of currency that's not regulated as an advantage, because you can basically take it with you anywhere you want, And I know, like, a year or two ago, it had peaked and now it's dropped. But I think, to me personally, I still have faith in it. I think it's still gonna be able to get back up there to where, people kind of predicted at one point. It may take a while, but I think, that's going to be one of the safest bets besides gold and silver. What do you think?
I still think gold and silver. Yeah. I mean, I'm not a big fan of the crypto. I think it's all based on excitement and who puts into it. Who knows? Maybe I'm wrong, but I also follow this guy named Peter Schiff, and he's a big advocate of everything this guy is saying. And one thing he does not agree with, he thinks crypto is a bunch of, it's another con, it's another Ponzi scheme. So I don't know what's going to be the new currency. I don't think anybody does. It could be crypto one day, maybe. Right now it's not, but I do know that that gold and silver, that's for sure, 100%. If you hold on to gold and silver, you'll be at least be able to protect your money. Robert Kiyosaki, I heard him on a podcast once, Rich Dad Poor Dad. He has his gold and silver stashed away in a different country. So for that same issue that you said, how do you take it with you? Well, he already has it in a different country waiting. So if something goes wrong, he takes the plane.
Yeah, but
these are millionaires. These are millionaires.
Yeah, obviously. But what if something goes wrong in that country? You can't get into that country. So like, it's that those tangible things that you can actually hold and take with you. It's hard because getting it from one place to the other that's the issue.
If we get to this point, though, the world's going to be a freaking shit show. If it gets to this point where everything just collapses, which I think it's not going to collapse. I I think the dollar will go to zero, but I think they're going to come up with a new currency, something to change that, like to supplement.
Yeah,
The
and
whole world's going to get together and kind of figure it out.
yeah, and I know they're trying to there's talks about the digital currency for like the US have their own digital currency. I don't think that's going to really happen anytime soon if it does happen. But there may be, and there may be some kind of like worldwide currency that replaces the dollar that is used everywhere. So I don't. I mean, who knows what's going to happen? I feel like you need to put your money into something that's safe. At least not all of it right now, but at least some of it in case something does happen. You can like later on cash that up back out. Bitcoin, I don't see Bitcoin being like the main currency anytime soon. I think it's too volatile. But I do
It's
see a
very
lot of
risky too, man. Like last year, people were saying Bitcoin by this year you'd be a millionaire, and today it dropped.
yeah, but I mean the problem is that everyone's an expert in everything. So like you can't listen to everybody, and like even us talking about this may not even happen anytime soon. So it's happening, but like we don't know to the extent it's going to happen. We're like just
Yeah.
prepare for things, prepare for the worst. But with Bitcoin, like El Salvador, a lot of these countries like El Salvador, they were buying it heavily like a year or two ago.
Yeah.
Argentina is getting into it a lot now. There's other countries that are adopting Bitcoin. The only problem I see with Bitcoin is that obviously I think there's like 21 or 19 million actually available or something like that in the market. If it drops substantially, someone can go and buy all Bitcoin, right? All the remaining Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Whenever it's available. I think they're still mining Bitcoin. But so then the person that controls that huge portion, I mean, so how does anyone use it?
Yeah, and it goes back to what he's saying. You can't print Bitcoin. You can't invent Bitcoin. You can't manipulate Bitcoin. And that's why they have currency, because they can manipulate the currency. You cannot manipulate gold because there's only a finite amount of gold. So that's why they don't want to use gold.
Yeah.
But they want to use currency because they can print it. They cannot manipulate the crypto. So the government's not going to allow. They have to regulate it.
Well, yeah, I'm
they have
not.
to control it.
Yeah, this won't be something the government's going to allow. This is be something like you're going to be able to use, almost like as a black market type thing, because between other people who can accept Bitcoin for services or goods. Yeah, I don't see it being like a mainstream thing that everyone's adopting. There's no way
Yeah.
because the
It
government
could be for that. Yeah, like the black market and stuff like that. Like
Yeah,
it's just interesting. Who knows? And we're not even saying this is going to happen tomorrow in 5 years or 10 years, but I believe this something with the dollar will happen eventually. Like maybe I don't know, in the next years or so, depending on how much they continue to print money. I think they're going to play the next.
yeah. I got the one here. Give me a second. Let me pull it up. So this next clip, it basically talks about inflation and the cost of foods. Basically, what we're seeing happening little by little here.
Reported inflation brought back to us. And then we'll see the quantity of money inside the United States grow much more rapidly, even than the Federal Reserve can create it, because we're getting a previous money back. And that's when we will really see.
Chris, can you do me a favor? Can you put it to 1835, please? Because there's a really important part that I want to go over here. This is phenomenal because he was talking about this 10 years ago, and now we're finally seeing it at this point.
It is sometimes amazing that we haven't experienced more inflation than we have. If they keep expanding the money supply so vastly, why aren't our prices growing faster than they really are? And the answer is that a good chunk of the money that the Fed created has been shipped overseas. I remember early in my research, I heard this expression that the Americans have exported their inflation. I thought, I don't understand. How can you export your inflation? Put it in a box and send it out. What do you do? Well, now I understand. You export your inflation by simply sending all these dollars that you created to these other countries, and then they send you their refrigerators and their cars and whatever, their TV sets. So you get hardware and they get little pieces of paper. It's a great deal for the American people for a while. For a while. Sooner or later, all of those pigeons come home to roost. When the time comes as it looks like it's now coming, when the rest of the world is saying, we don't want to play this game anymore. Uncle Sam's dollars are just becoming worthless. There are too many of them. We've got to find something else other than American dollars. Then those dollars start to come back to America. People, we don't want them anymore. What do we do with them? Once this revs up and we've got this little trickle of money coming back that we previously exported, once it becomes a flood and it starts to rush back, now we are getting our former exported inflation brought back to us. And then
That's
we'll see the
freaking
quantity of
crazy.
money inside the United States grow much more rapidly, even than the Federal Reserve can create it. Because
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. I was just thinking, like, do you think there's going to be something else that they have planned as far as to replace something like gold? Because obviously now gold, there's gold out there, but it's spread out, right? It's spread out, and they're still mining gold to every day.
Yeah.
People are still coming up with gold. But do you think the government or somebody they have a plan of another another thing that they're going to be using to back the new currency if they use a new currency?
That's the thing. That's the way they should do it. It should be backed, but it doesn't happen that way, because when they backed it the first time, USA, after that war, they had all the gold. And the whole banking system, the world banking system, was going to collapse. And that's why they took it off the gold standard. USA literally had and then the country started asking back their gold for their gold. And at that point, they had to come up with a new way of doing business, and they took it off the gold standard. But yeah, it's just crazy how they just keep manipulating the system. And the fact that that's crazy, I just thought, like, when I saw that video for the first time, like, literally we're sending them paper and they're sending us everything that we need. Like our TVs, our cars, all these factories all over the world. And we're just selling them these papers that are going to be basically useless. It's like we have control of the printing press. Whoever controls the printing press controls the world. And that's why United States right now, if they lose that standard, being the world reserve currency, everything changes.
Let me I'm going to play one more clip here, and this is the one I was talking about a few minutes ago.
Yeah, I just wanted to share that one with it.
Sec.
Given the premise that you have a permanent underclass or poor class, and how does inflation affect them disproportionately? It affects them basically in the percentage of their income that goes to food. And we see this as a ratio, and we know that there are some danger points. For example, in Egypt recently, once that ratio got to 40% of income going to food and the price of food rising due to inflation, when it got to 40%, that's historically a point where people actually stage a revolution. That's exactly what we saw. The French Revolution, similarly, was all around the price of food getting to a certain critical point where people simply, the risk reward for revolution was favorable toward revolution.
Absolutely. That's the crucial breaking point. When people can't eat, that's when they protest. That's when the revolution starts. And, we're not there in the US, obviously, at 40%. We're probably there with the rents.
Yeah, I mean, 40%, that's a huge. So, like, let's just say, I don't know what the average household income is, but, like, let's just say you're making your household income is $50,000. I mean, 40% of that is basically for food.
Going to food, yeah. Well, this is what happened to, like, these countries like Venezuela. It could happen in Argentina with the 104% inflation. If people can't eat, that's terrible, man. Especially in a country like, if this ends up happening in Argentina, I don't know what's going to happen in Argentina, but they can feed 450 million people. They can produce amount of food to feed 450 million people, and the country has 45 million. And there's people that are struggling to eat, which is insane, because the system is all fucked up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very the last, I don't know, decade or two, I've never been, really kind of stuck on prices on food, because I felt like the situation we were in financially, we were okay, and the prices were okay. Now, like every time I go to the supermarket, I'm like looking at the prices and I'm like, man, I cannot believe this is.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, man. You can't walk out without spending, depending on what you're getting, but it's always if you're just getting, especially buying meat, if you're buying protein,
Yeah.
it's a lot of money, man.
Protein, Sam's Club or Costco, stuff like that, Costco, even Aldi, they have, pretty much affordable stuff. But it's the biggest problem is that if you have a family with kids, if you're trying to raise your kids and to eat healthy, and because obviously you can go and spend, less money and eat a bunch of shit, but you're going to be ingesting a bunch of chemicals and stuff that's worse for you than the average stuff that, we try to feed our kids. So like you're battling like being poisoned or being just like, taken advantage of by these prices. So it's hard. And then when the kids, like those kids, they're eating all day long, like breakfast, you got to pack them a lunch and they come home and have a snack and then dinner. And then, if they want something to eat after dinner, nonstop eating. As an adult, like, I could say, okay, I'm going to cut back and, I'll have whatever, 1 or 2 meals. You're not going to tell your kid, hey, obviously if it gets to that point, you have to, but like, no, you guys are not eating breakfast today. You're not having lunch today because we just can't afford it. That's scary.
Yeah, no, the food factor, if that ends, I don't think that's going to happen here right now, but it happens. It's happened in other countries, right?
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see how everything plays out in the next couple of years. I don't think we're even close to that point yet, but I would say probably with the rents and the cost of living, but you can adjust that because you can have roommates, you can live with your family, but with food, unless you're growing your own food, you're stuck with those prices.
Yeah. So yeah, guys. So basically, takeaways from this is just plan. Just think about it, plan ahead, and maybe start thinking about putting some money away into an asset like gold or silver for now, just to have something as a backup plan. Don't go and throw all your money into Bitcoin or crypto or all into something else. Just be smart. If you're in a smaller bank, maybe go open an account with a larger bank that is the government will back it and bail them out if something happens. So yeah, I don't even know what to do with retirement stuff, like all the stocks and stuff.
They've been saying that for years. That's all going to be wiped out. Hopefully not. Baby boomers and people getting close to retirement. We still have years ahead of us to come up with a solution if that happens. But I still save cash, but I save it for, to have for emergency, because obviously the world still runs on cash. And also, if you have cash, this is not going to happen tomorrow. So maybe it gives you an opportunity to invest in something, maybe a hard asset, or maybe gold, maybe silver, or maybe if you believe in crypto, maybe that. So just don't have all your eggs in one basket at this point, because you don't really know what's going to happen. But if it does happen, I don't think it's going to happen tomorrow. I think it's going to happen slowly. I don't think every country is going to say, no, we don't want the US dollar anymore. I think it's going to happen slowly,
Yeah. And then, also pending, there's no major wars too, because, who knows what could happen if a war breaks out.
If a war breaks out and it's a nuclear war, I think at that point, it doesn't matter what the currency is. We're all going to be gone anyways.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Putin and the China. What's the Chinese? What's the Chinese?
I forgot. I can't ever pronounce his name.
Kim.
Kim? And something about I wanted to share too.
That's in North Korea.
I can't remember his name. The Chinese Communist Party leader. Talking about?
Yeah.
No. And this is something just because I know people say, well, it's because Biden's in office or because Trump or it doesn't matter who's in office. This has been going on for decades. Everybody's been calling it for decades because it all comes down to how much money you spend in the United States. Every president that's been in office has created more of what do you call it? Debt. So we're up to what, 31 trillion. So every president that's come one after another has just added to this debt, which essentially happens or what it ends up the demise of the US dollar down the road. So everybody contributed. Nobody is washing their hands from this. Every single party contributed to this.
And I think tomorrow is the debt ceiling negotiations for the US.
Yeah, because they're at 31 trillion, right?
Yeah, they're crazy. I mean, It's
Yeah.
ridiculous. I don't understand how like a country we're so in debt.
Well, guess what they're gonna do?
Try printing more money.
Exactly. They're gonna manipulate it. Because that's all they always do. They're just gonna say, oh, you know what, we'll just extend a little bit higher, we'll print some more money. If the banks go, we'll just print, it's all about printing. They control the printing press. So the day they don't do that, that's when everything collapses. We're not there yet, but just understanding the logic behind it. I'm reading about that. I'm like, I know what they're gonna do. They're gonna call an emergency meeting, they're gonna say, we need to increase the debt. Like every president has done before that.
Yeah. So we'll keep an eye on it. If there's anything big, we'll do a podcast on it. But if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe to the channel. It doesn't cost you anything. It just, just click on the red button and then like the video and leave a comment if you have anything you want to talk about. Also, we will be doing a giveaway eventually. We're just trying to get our subscriber base. Yeah, at least to 100 before we do a giveaway. Sebastian, anything else?
That's it. Next time, guys.
All right, guys. Have a good night.
Night.